You ever notice how life's cruelest jokes come wrapped in the loud cough of an engine that refuses to start? I swear, my car broke down so often it felt like the universe was staging some twisted comedy sketch just for me. And every damn time, like clockwork, there he was Zethan rolling up in his old Chevy truck, grease-stained hands, half-smirk, eyes that never gave away too much, but always just enough. The first time he pulled over, I thought he was just another good Samaritan, the kind you read about in some heartwarming Sunday newspaper story. By the third time, I started wondering if fate had something else up its sleeve. By the fifth, I wasn't sure if I should curse my shitty luck with cars or thank it for handing me him. See, this isn't really a story about cars at all. It's about the way one man's patience can sneak past your defenses, the way the smallest gestures can echo louder than 100 shouted confessions. And maybe just maybe it's about how two broken people can end up fixing each other when neither of them expected to be fixed in the first place. The first time I noticed him differently wasn't when he leaned under the hood. It wasn't the grease smudges on his jaw or the muscles in his forearms flexing as he tightened a bolt. It was when he looked up at me, sweat dripping down his temple, and asked with a crooked grin, "You ever think your car just hates you?" I laughed so hard I almost forgot I was stranded. That was Ethan. He had this way of disarming you, making your worst moments feel like just another story worth telling later. But behind that humor, I could sense something else, a silence, like he was carrying more than he let on. And maybe that's why I couldn't stop thinking about him after he drove away that night. The next few times my car betrayed me, it was almost like I wanted it to happen. I'd curse under my breath, call a tow service I knew damn well would take too long, and just hope that Ethan's truck would appear on the horizon again. It always did. One late autumn evening, as the sky bled orange into deep purple, my car gave up right outside a grocery store parking lot. Ethan pulled up, headlights cutting through the dusk. He didn't even ask if I needed help anymore. He just parked, got out, and said, "What's her excuse this time?" That night, though, something changed. We sat on the hood after he fixed the damn thing, sipping sodas from the vending machine, watching the last of the daylight slip away. The air was crisp, filled with the smell of fallen leaves and motor oil. For the first time, the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. "Why do you keep showing up?" I finally asked, half joking, half desperate to know. He shrugged, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Guess I like fixing things." There was more he wasn't saying. I could feel it, and something in me wanted to press. But I didn't. Not yet. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan became less of a coincidence and more of a presence. Sometimes he'd text me before my car even stalled, like he just knew. Other times, I found myself inventing excuses to see him. "Hey, my headlights feel dim. Think I heard a rattle." Lies, all of them, but he never called me out. Instead, he'd roll up his sleeves, wipe his hands on a rag, and smile that quiet smile that made my chest ache in ways I didn't want to admit. It wasn't just my car he was fixing. It was me. The truth was, I'd been carrying around my own mess for years. A failed relationship that left me gutted. A father who never learned how to love his son the way a son needed. Nights that felt too long, mornings that felt pointless. I was running on empty long before my car ever did. But Ethan never asked for explanations. He just showed up. Every damn time. The night it all came crashing out was colder than most. My car had stalled on a back road, and Ethan showed up like always. But instead of joking, instead of making light of it, he found me sitting on the curb, head in my hands, tears I hadn't meant to shed burning my face. I tried to hide it, to brush it off, but he didn't buy it. "Hey," he said softly, crouching down so his eyes met mine. His hands were still greasy, still rough, but the way he touched my shoulder was gentle. "Talk to me." And I did. For the first time in years, I let it spill the heartbreak, the loneliness, the weight I carried that I couldn't set down anywhere else. He didn't interrupt, didn't judge. He just listened, his hands steady on my back, his silence saying more than words ever could. When I finally looked up, expecting pity or awkwardness, all I saw was him. "Ethan, steady, real. You don't have to fix everything alone," he whispered. Something inside me cracked open then. Something I'd been holding shut for too damn long. That was the night I realized Ethan wasn't just helping me with my car. He was patching up the broken pieces of me I thought no one would ever want to touch. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted to fix him too. Ethan wasn't invincible. That was the first truth I had to face. For weeks after that night on the curb, when I broke down in front of him, our lives started weaving together in ways that felt almost too natural. He'd drop by with coffee in the mornings, claim he just happened to be passing by. I'd find excuses to swing by the garage where he worked, watching him with grease on his hands, music blaring in the background, a quiet rhythm in the chaos of my life. But then came the silence. There were days he didn't answer my texts, nights when his truck didn't pull up no matter how long I stared out the window. At first I thought maybe he was just busy, but my gut told me different. When he finally showed up again, his smile was thinner, his shoulders heavier. He fixed my car, but his hands shook as he worked. When I asked what was wrong, he shrugged it off. Nothing. Just tired. But I knew better. I found out the truth 2 weeks later. His mother had been sick for months, and he was the only one holding things together. Long shifts at the garage, sleepless nights at the hospital, bills piling up like bricks on his chest. He'd been fixing everyone else's mess, mine included, while his own world was crumbling. The weight of it hit me like a punch. That night, I drove to the hospital with him. For once, I wasn't the one being saved. I sat in that dim hospital room, watching the frail woman in the bed breathe shallowly, watching Ethan's eyes soften as he tucked the blanket around her shoulders. He was so gentle, so full of quiet love. It broke me open in a different way. He wasn't just the man who fixed cars. He was the man who carried storms inside and still showed up for others. And I realized I couldn't let him carry it alone. The next weeks were a blur. I cooked dinners we barely had the energy to eat. I drove him home when he was too exhausted to keep his eyes open. I held him when the grief threatened to tear through his carefully built silence. Sometimes he tried to push me away, whispering, "You don't owe me this." But I stayed. Not because I owed him, but because I loved him. Yeah, love. That word I'd been too scared to say out loud. It wasn't a lightning bolt. It wasn't fireworks. It was quieter than that. It was in the way his head fell against my shoulder at 3 a.m. in a hospital waiting room. It was in the way his hand found mine without either of us thinking. It was in the way he trusted me enough to let me see him raw, stripped of the smirks and the grease and the armor. Love was in the silence between us, the kind that didn't need filling. His mom passed in the spring. The day of the funeral, Ethan looked like the world had been ripped from under him. But when the service ended, when the crowd had dispersed, he found me. His eyes were red, his voice broken, but his words steady. "Don't leave," he whispered. "Not now. Not ever." And I didn't. We built something from there, shaky at first, but real. Mornings started with coffee and the smell of motor oil. Nights ended with us sprawled on the couch, laughing about nothing, or holding on to each other when the silence turned heavy. There were fights, of course. Moments when the old wounds bled through, when my insecurities clashed with his stubbornness. I'd storm out, slam doors. He'd retreat into silence. But somehow, we always found our way back, like magnets that couldn't stay apart no matter how hard we tried. One summer night, months after everything, my car broke down again. Of course it did. But this time, instead of cursing or panicking, I laughed, because I wasn't waiting for fate to send Ethan anymore. He was already there, in the driver's seat beside me, hand on my thigh, rolling his eyes at my terrible luck. As he leaned under the hood, I leaned against the car, watching him with a smile that I couldn't hide anymore. "You know," I said, "if I hadn't had the worst car in town, I might have never met you." He looked up, grease smudged across his cheek, that crooked grin pulling at his lips. "Guess you should thank her, then." I stepped closer, heart hammering, words bubbling up before I could stop them. "I love you, Ethan." The silence that followed nearly killed me. But then his grin softened, his eyes bright with something deeper than I'd ever seen. "About time you said it," he whispered. And when he kissed me, right there in the fading sunlight with the smell of gasoline and summer air around us. It wasn't dramatic or perfect. It was messy, a little clumsy, but it was ours. Real. For the first time in years, I wasn't broken. I wasn't waiting to be fixed. I was whole. Because somewhere between the breakdowns and the late-night drives, between the grief and the laughter, Ethan had taught me something no one else had. Love isn't about swooping in and saving someone. It's about showing up, over and over, even when it's hard. It's about holding hands in the dark, even when you don't know if the light will come. And maybe that's why, years later, when my car finally gave out for good and we bought a new one together, I didn't feel the same panic I used to. Because cars break down. Life breaks down. But love the kind we built didn't. Ethan kept fixing my cars. But me, I got to fix his heart too. And in the end, that was the only repair that ever really mattered. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.